So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Will we?
Yeah.
I thought it said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you
Yeah, but
did.
I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
For decades, the Sapphire Tiara remained absent from official inventories, royal exhibitions, and every carefully approved history of Diana's jewels. Then Edmund Vale, the aging royal jeweler, who had once been trusted inside the private vaults, spoke its name. He revealed that Diana personally asked to wear the extraordinary piece, only for Queen Elizabeth II to refuse her request and order the tiara locked away. But the refusal was not about fashion, it was about fear. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Edmund Vale had spent years repairing jewels from the royal collection, the pieces held by the sovereign for ceremonial use. During a recorded conversation about Diana's jewels, the master jeweler stopped and removed his glasses. One tiara, he said, had never been shown publicly, the Midnight Sapphire Tiara. The name carried weight. The 19th century piece held 9 deep blue sapphires, surrounded by diamonds, and its central stone was believed to have belonged to Queen Victoria's family. Diana hoped to wear it at a state banquet, a formal dinner for a visiting head of state. She submitted the request. The Queen answered directly. Elizabeth refused. She also ordered the tiara removed from circulation and placed inside a restricted royal vault, a secure collection space opened only with the monarch's permission. Vale knew the decision was extraordinary because Diana had worn jewels before. This was not caution. It felt personal. Diana stood motionless when the message reached the fitting room. Moments earlier, she had held the sapphires and watched Vale place the tiara against her hair. The case was empty. She touched the space where it had rested and asked, "Was it something I did?" He never forgot the question. She was not asking about jewelry, she was asking whether the palace feared the woman she became while wearing it. Vale later explained that the Queen had seen a fitting image. She knew exactly how commanding Diana appeared. Soon afterward, the inventory card, the official record tracking a jewel's use and location, received 4 handwritten words. Not to be issued. There was no expiry date, no ceremonial exception, and no explanation. But the deepest shock was still ahead. Vale revealed that Diana was not the first woman tied to those sapphires. The Queen's fear had begun decades earlier, after another royal woman wore the tiara and shifted the balance of attention inside the monarchy. To understand why one glimpse of Diana wearing those sapphires caused such alarm, the story must return to the women who understood that royal jewels were never merely beautiful, they were declarations of power. 3 people stood at the center of the sapphire mystery, and each saw something different when the tiara emerged from its case. Diana saw the possibility of becoming visible on her own terms. Queen Elizabeth II saw a symbol capable of escaping royal control. Edmund Vale saw 2 women separated by rank, generation, and silence. He had been ordered to serve the crown, but in that private room, he also witnessed the princess's hope collapse. Diana had become one of the most recognized women in the world, yet inside palace walls, recognition did not always mean power. She still depended on approval for jewels, appearances, precedence, and the meaning attached to every public choice. Precedence was the royal order deciding who stood, entered, or appeared before whom, and even that invisible system reminded her that admiration from the public did not free her from control. Queen Elizabeth II viewed royal jewelry differently. To the monarch, historic pieces formed an inherited language of rank and continuity. A tiara could signal trust, strengthen the line of succession, or quietly show which woman the institution considered central. She never treated such pieces as decoration alone, because each one carried a message the palace could not afford to misunderstand. Diana looked at Edmund Vale during the fitting and asked whether the sapphires made her appear too severe. He studied her for a moment before answering. "They did not make her severe," he said. "They made her look certain." The word unsettled her immediately. Certainty was exactly what she felt palace life had been taking away from her. One approval and one restriction at a time. Elizabeth received a Polaroid from the preliminary fitting at Buckingham Palace. A Polaroid was an instant photograph used before final approval, allowing the household to judge how a jewel appeared before a public event. The Queen studied Diana's expression longer than the tiara, then placed the image face down. She told her private secretary that the selection was unsuitable, but her calm voice concealed something deeper. Vale understood the real problem. The midnight sapphire tiara did not rise above Diana like a symbol placed upon her. It sat low, framed her face, and made her look as though the monarchy had grown around her. The jewel did not merely decorate the princess. It made her appear to embody the crown itself. Then the order arrived. Vale was told to return the tiara immediately, while Diana waited in the next room, still unaware that a decision about her image had already been made. He carried the case back, knowing duty demanded silence while compassion demanded honesty. Diana watched his hands as he closed the velvet lid. She understood before he spoke. Slowly, she removed the sapphire earrings chosen to accompany the piece and placed them beside the case. She did not argue. She thanked him instead, and that quiet gratitude made the moment more painful. Years later, Vale connected the Queen's reaction to an older warning attached to the tiara, one involving another royal woman who had once crossed the boundaries of obedience. The locked case was only the final act of an older drama, because the sapphire tiara had already become dangerous once before, and one forgotten palace ceremony would turn that danger into permanent royal fear. The Queen did not fear the midnight sapphire tiara because of a superstition or an ancient curse. She feared what had happened the last time a royal woman wore it against advice. The incident had been erased from public memory, reduced to a few restricted notes and one photograph hidden inside the jewelry archives. But Edmund Vale remembered the warning given to him. The tiara did not simply attract attention. It changed where the attention belonged. Lady Alexandra Pembroke had worn it decades earlier, during a major diplomatic reception in the early years of Elizabeth's reign. The event brought foreign officials and royal representatives together, under strict ceremonial order, meaning every entrance, seat, and greeting reflected rank. Alexandra, a fictional cousin of Princess Marina, was admired for her confidence, but privately criticized for refusing to remain quietly within those limits. The sapphire piece changed the room. Foreign guests repeatedly mistook Alexandra for the senior royal woman present, and she accepted their attention with calm assurance. The confusion became humiliating when several newspapers placed her photograph above the Queen's the following morning. Elizabeth said little, but she remembered everything. The monarchy had been made to look uncertain about its own center. Decades later, Diana unknowingly reopened that wound during a closed rehearsal for a 1989 state banquet. A state banquet was a formal royal dinner held for a visiting national leader, and every detail was chosen to express authority. Edmund Vale was preparing the tiara for archival inspection when the princess noticed it. She stepped closer and asked him to place it on her head. Diana smiled when she saw herself. She told Vale the sapphires did not feel like borrowed history. They felt like something she could carry naturally. For a few moments, she appeared completely certain, and he understood why the jewel mattered to her. Then a senior dresser left the room to telephone the Queen, and the atmosphere shifted. Elizabeth received the news with immediate alarm. Diana had already become more famous than Alexandra had ever been, and the monarch understood the danger at once. The old reception, the displaced photographs, and the confusion over rank returned with brutal clarity. If the sapphires had once unsettled the royal image, Diana could transform them into something far more powerful. A sealed archival note made the fear unmistakable. It warned that the tiara should be worn only by a woman whose position could never be confused with that of the sovereign, meaning the reigning monarch. Diana matched the exact danger described in those words: young, charismatic, and capable of commanding attention without asking for it. Vale later admitted in a recorded conversation that the Queen went further than refusal. She ordered Diana's fitting photograph, preparation notes, and issue record removed from the ordinary jewelry file. The princess eventually learned that the decision came directly from Elizabeth, and she refused to let silence carry the final word. What began as a dispute over sapphires was now moving behind a closed palace door, where Diana would force the Queen to confront the question neither woman could safely ask in public: who was the monarchy truly afraid of eclipsing? Diana entered the Queen's private sitting room without the sapphire tiara, but its presence followed her through the door. There were no aides beside them, no jeweler to soften the language, and no official schedule to limit the exchange. Elizabeth expected the princess to ask for reconsideration. Instead, Diana asked something far more dangerous. She wanted to know whether the jewel had been denied because of royal protocol or because the monarch feared what Diana became while wearing it. Diana carried the banquet dress sketches created around the sapphires and placed them beside the Queen's writing table. Elizabeth sat with the original inventory card close at hand. An inventory card was the official record showing where a royal jewel was stored, when it had been used, and who had permission to wear it. The small document now carried more power than the woman standing before it. Elizabeth began with continuity, suitability, and constitutional symbolism. Constitutional symbolism meant the public message created when a royal object was linked to a particular person or rank. Her words remained formal because formality gave her control. Diana listened, but she could hear what was missing. The Queen was explaining the system without explaining the fear behind it. Diana placed the sketches flat on the table and asked, "Is it the tiara, or is it me?" Elizabeth did not answer at once. That pause struck harder than refusal. It told the princess that the question had reached the truth before the monarch was ready to admit it. Elizabeth finally said popularity was not the same as position. She meant that public affection could not replace rank, duty, or the line of succession. Diana heard something colder. She heard that the love people gave her had become a problem, something she was expected to control rather than cherish. Diana reached for the inventory card and moved it toward herself. She pointed to the handwritten restriction. Elizabeth placed one finger over the words and pulled the document back. The gesture was quiet, but the meaning was brutal. One woman could ask for the truth. The other still controlled the record. Elizabeth admitted the tiara created the wrong impression. Diana pressed her to explain what that meant. The Queen answered that it made the princess appear independent of the institution that lent it. There it was, the real fear. The sapphires did not reinforce royal authority. They made it seem as though authority had moved toward Diana. Diana held her voice steady. She said she had never wanted to stand above the crown. She only wanted to stop disappearing inside it. For one moment, Elizabeth's composure broke. The words touched the conflict she had buried for an entire reign. The human cost of becoming a symbol before being allowed to remain a person. Elizabeth closed the folder and said the decision would not change. Diana left without the sketches. Outside the room, Edmund Vale received an even harsher command. The tiara had to leave Buckingham Palace that night. The refusal had become irreversible, but the next decision was not made by Diana or the Queen alone. It emerged from the hidden machinery of the monarchy, where advisors transformed one woman's fear into permanent royal policy. The Queen had said no. The palace intended to make certain that no one could ever ask again. Within hours of Diana leaving the private sitting room, senior advisors gathered around a narrow table with the tiara's file between them. Their task was not to debate beauty. It was to control meaning. They feared that if Diana wore the sapphires once, the image would become stronger than any explanation the monarchy could later issue, and images could not be returned to a vault. Edmund Vale sat opposite the Queen's private secretary and the keeper of the royal collection. A private secretary was the senior advisor who helped manage the monarch's official decisions, while the keeper controlled access to historic royal objects. The sapphire case rested between them. No one opened it. Even closed, it seemed to dominate the room. The monarch had made the decision, but these men would make it permanent. They could change issue permissions, restrict archive access, move jewels between royal residences, and remove objects from the catalogs used by palace dressers. A piece did not need to be destroyed to disappear. It only needed to become inaccessible. Vale objected carefully. He explained that Diana had asked respectfully and had formed a genuine connection with the tiara. The private secretary answered without hesitation. That connection, he said, was exactly the danger. If the public began to associate the sapphires with the princess, the crown might never recover control of their meaning. Vale remembered Diana removing the earrings after the refusal. He remembered her quiet thanks and the pain hidden beneath it. When the transfer document was pushed toward him, his hand paused above the signature line. A transfer document was the official record authorizing a royal object to be moved and restricted. His name would not simply relocate a jewel, it would erase proof that she had once imagined herself worthy of wearing it. The keeper turned the key in the velvet case. He wrapped a narrow security ribbon around the fastening, then pressed a wax seal over it. The stamp struck the table with a hard, final sound. Vale looked away. The document ordered the tiara moved to a lower access vault at Windsor Castle, where only the sovereign could authorize its release. A second instruction removed its catalog image from the selection shown to royal stylists. Future women would never request it because they would never know it existed. Elizabeth received confirmation later that night. Alone at her desk, the Queen read Vale's signature. closed her eyes briefly, and placed the paper beneath another file. She had preserved control, but the silence on her face carried no victory. Diana soon learned that the tiara had vanished from Buckingham Palace. She did not rebel publicly. She made a quieter, more dangerous decision. She would stop asking permission to define herself. The jewel was sealed away, but the act of locking it down released something the palace could not contain: Diana's determination to build an identity no vault, inventory card, or royal refusal could define. When Diana learned the midnight sapphire tiara had been removed from Buckingham Palace, she understood that the refusal had never been temporary. The Queen had not delayed a decision. The institution had erased the possibility. Yet the princess did not demand the jewel again. She made a quieter choice, one the palace initially failed to recognize as rebellion. If the monarchy would not let her express authority through its symbols, Diana would begin creating authority without them. Diana received confirmation from her dresser that the sapphire tiara was no longer available for fittings. A royal fitting was the private process in which clothing and jewels were selected for an official appearance. No explanation came with the news. Instead, the planned banquet styling was rebuilt around a familiar tiara already linked to her, as though the forbidden piece had never existed. Diana prepared for the state banquet without protest. She followed precedents, the formal order deciding how royals entered, stood, and were seated according to rank. She smiled at the correct moments and wore the approved jewel exactly as expected. Palace advisors watched her composure and assumed the conflict had ended. Diana knew otherwise. Before leaving her rooms, she studied herself and told her dresser that the replacement tiara was beautiful, but it did not feel like a choice. Her voice remained calm. Her hand did not. She gripped the dressing table until her knuckles whitened, then released it before anyone could mistake pain for disobedience. Elizabeth noticed the distance immediately. Across the banquet hall, the Queen watched Diana perform every duty flawlessly. Yet the warmth had disappeared from her expression. The monarch had secured obedience, but she understood that trust had been damaged. The princess had followed the rules. She had simply stopped believing those rules protected her. Diana returned to her rooms and removed the approved tiara before taking off her gloves or gown. She placed it carefully inside its case, closed the lid herself, and said, "They can keep the version of me they arranged." The words were quiet. The decision behind them was not. Diana began changing in the months that followed. She chose personal jewelry, stronger clothing, and public work where human connection mattered more than ceremonial rank. The palace slowly realized its mistake. Denying her the sapphires had not made her smaller. It had pushed her beyond the institution's control. Edmund Vale later revealed in a recorded conversation that the princess sent him a handwritten note. She thanked him for allowing her to see the tiara and wrote that, for several minutes in the mirror, she understood what confidence looked like. He hid the message inside a private tool case, carrying both her gratitude and his guilt. Years later, after Diana's death, Elizabeth requested the restricted sapphire file. Diana had answered the refusal by becoming unforgettable without the jewel. But only then would the Queen confront what had truly been locked away, not a tiara, but an opportunity for understanding. After Diana's death, the monarchy faced grief on a scale it had not understood, and anger it could no longer manage through silence. In the middle of that crisis, Queen Elizabeth II made a private request. She asked for the midnight sapphire tiara to be brought to Windsor. There would be no ceremony, no photographers, and no advisors explaining what the jewel represented. Only the monarch, Edmund Vale, and the object she had once believed too dangerous for Diana to wear. Edmund Vale received the summons without explanation. He was instructed to enter the restricted vault, a secured storage area reserved for jewels, requiring the sovereign's direct approval, and retrieve the sealed case. The ribbon had not been cut since the night of Diana's refusal. When he broke it, the sound seemed to reopen a decision everyone had tried to bury. Elizabeth chose a small private room instead of the formal jewelry inspection chamber, the official space where historic pieces were examined and recorded. She wanted no institutional shield around the meeting. Vale understood what that meant. The Queen was not reviewing an object. She was returning to a wound. Elizabeth watched as he opened the case. She did not touch the tiara. Her eyes settled on the central sapphire, and she asked whether Diana had truly liked it. The monarch already knew the answer, But this time she wanted to hear it without protocol softening the truth. Vale answered carefully. Diana had not merely liked the jewel, he said. She had looked relieved. For those few minutes, the princess seemed to recognize herself before anyone else could define her. Elizabeth lowered her eyes. The words struck deeper because they described something the queen had denied herself for most of her life. Elizabeth finally lifted the tiara with both hands. She carried it toward the mirror, but did not place it on her head. Instead, she held it at the height where Diana's reflection would once have appeared. She remained silent, caught between duty and regret. Vale then told her about the handwritten note. In that private account, Diana had thanked him for the fitting and written that the moment showed her what confidence looked like. The queen's grip tightened around the frame. She asked why the message had never entered the archive, the official collection where royal records were preserved. Vale gave the answer he had feared for years. Diana had already been removed from the story. He believed the note would be buried beside the missing photograph. His honesty could have ended his service. Elizabeth did not reprimand him. Elizabeth returned the tiara to the case and opened the restricted file. She ordered Diana's fitting record restored. Then she removed the words, "Not to be issued," and replaced them with a new instruction, "Preserve with full history." The correction remained hidden for years, until Vale's recorded revelation brought it into public view. The queen could not return the sapphire tiara to Diana, but she could return Diana to its history, and when that corrected history finally emerged, private regret became a global royal reckoning. Edmund Vale's revelation did more than uncover an unseen jewel. It released a lost image of Diana at the exact moment she appeared to claim royal confidence for herself. When the restored fitting photograph reached the public, the response was immediate. People did not see a woman overwhelmed by diamonds. They saw a princess looking directly into a mirror, shoulders raised, eyes calm, and expression transformed, as though she had briefly discovered the future the palace refused to permit. Edmund Vale had supported his account with the restored archive record, the official file preserving the history and use of royal objects. It confirmed that Diana tried on the midnight sapphire tiara, formally requested it, and was refused by Queen Elizabeth II. The same documents showed that the jewel was moved into restricted storage almost immediately afterward, proving its disappearance had been deliberate. Buckingham Palace responded with carefully controlled language. The statement described the decision as part of the historical management of the royal collection, meaning the system used to store, protect, and authorize access to crown-owned objects. But the explanation sounded cold beside Diana's expression. The palace offered procedure. The photograph offered pain. The public reaction exploded across London. One newspaper placed the fitting image across its front page beneath the headline, "The crown Diana never wore." Commuters stopped near Victoria Station to photograph it. An older woman reached toward the page and quietly touched the princess's face, turning a royal controversy into something deeply personal. Kensington Palace became another center of emotion. A small crowd gathered beside the gates where mourners had once left flowers. One visitor wore a sapphire blue scarf. Another placed down a handwritten card that read, "You never needed their permission to shine." Diana was gone, yet the refusal suddenly felt immediate. Television coverage sharpened the contrast. A broadcaster placed the lost-fitting photograph beside an image of Diana wearing the approved banquet tiara. The presenter described them not as two jewelry choices, but as two versions of the same woman, the princess selected by the palace and the woman she had briefly selected for herself. William saw the front page before an official engagement. The prince studied his mother's expression, folded the newspaper carefully, and kept it rather than throwing it away. He refused to attack his grandmother publicly. His silence protected the queen, but it also honored Diana by refusing to dismiss what had happened. Vale then gave one final recorded interview. He explained that Elizabeth later restored Diana's name to the tiara's file, revealing that the monarch had recognized the emotional cost of her decision, even though she could never repair it directly. The royal collection confirmed that the sapphire tiara would not simply be assigned to another woman. It would be displayed with the full record of the fitting, refusal, removal, and restoration. The debate had moved beyond blame, because the sapphire tiara now demanded a final judgment about love, authority, regret, and the terrible price of protecting an institution from the woman who might have helped transform it. The midnight sapphire tiara was never placed on Diana's head before a state banquet. It never appeared on a palace balcony, in an official portrait, or beneath the lights of a royal procession. The Queen succeeded in keeping the image from the world during Diana's lifetime. Yet the final outcome was the opposite of what the palace intended. The tiara disappeared into darkness, while the woman denied permission to wear it became more recognizable, more influential, and more enduring than the jewel itself. Diana does not look defeated in the restored fitting photograph. She appears composed, almost peaceful, because for one private moment she saw herself without the restrictions that usually surrounded her. The fitting record, the official document showing when and why a royal jewel was presented, now confirms that the confidence in her expression was real. She had not borrowed authority from the sapphires. She had recognized something already living within her. Diana felt the refusal deeply, because it confirmed that the palace feared her independence. Yet that pain also clarified her path. She stopped relying entirely on royal symbols and built her public identity through compassion, vulnerability, courage, and direct human connection. The institution denied her one image, but she created another stronger, warmer, and impossible to control. Elizabeth had acted from duty, memory, and a genuine belief that royal symbolism must remain protected. The Queen feared that one photograph could blur the line between popularity and sovereignty, meaning the supreme position held by the reigning monarch. But her later decision to restore Diana's name to the file proved that she understood the cost of that control. Preservation without humanity had become another form of erasure. Edmund Vale stood inside the completed exhibition as the velvet case was opened behind glass. Beside the tiara rested Diana's photograph and the corrected inventory card. The jeweler lowered his head, not in shame, but in relief. Her presence could no longer be removed from the object's history, and his recorded testimony had finally returned her voice to the story. William visited the display privately before it opened. The prince did not request the tiara for Catherine, and he did not demand that it remain unused forever. He asked only that his mother's full story stay beside it wherever the jewel was shown. His decision turned remembrance into policy. The royal collection accepted a new principle. Historic jewels could no longer be treated as lifeless symbols separated from the people whose hopes, disappointments, and conflicts gave them meaning. The Queen had feared that Diana wearing the sapphire tiara would make the princess appear greater than the institution. History delivered a sharper truth. Diana became powerful because the institution could not contain what people recognized in her. The tiara remained crown property, but its emotional meaning belonged to Diana. Elizabeth kept control of the jewel. The princess kept the memory. The midnight sapphire tiara was never Diana's lost crown. It was the last royal symbol she needed permission to claim. She could be refused the sapphires, removed from the archive, and kept away from the vault, but she could not be made invisible. The case was finally opened. The record was finally corrected, and Diana's place within its history was secured not as the princess who failed to receive a tiara, but as the woman who proved that the most enduring form of royalty could never be locked away. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.